Right, steamy fans, let's get this cookie crumbling. Now, as you can see, the weather's brighter. It's another day. Yes. So, weather's nice, job's ready. Couple of things to tell you. First off, there is a negative earth lead that goes from the body to the battery, like so. There you go. From the body to the battery, and then also to the gearbox. Okay, so you've got to take that off. Alright, so there you go. It bolts on somewhere down there, I think. Or was it there? Could have been there, but you'll see it anyway, it's obvious. You've got to remove that because your gearbox, it won't give you enough clearance if you don't. Other than that, the other important thing was, eventually today, this morning, I took that off. Now that is the rear mounting to the gearbox that we were talking about yesterday, where I took the bolt out of the rubber mount instead of the bracket. Now, hopefully, let's get that down there so the light kicks in on the camera. Now, that fits around there, like so. And yesterday, we took that bolt out there, and we left these 3 bolts in. Now, I've decided today that you can't get this gearbox out without removing that bracket. So I've took that bracket off. All that is 3 14mm bolts. I'll show you when the bracket's off where they are. 2 from the top and 1 you have to get to from the bottom, okay? And then that can be removed completely. And there you go, you can see where your bolts are relative to that. Okay, so that has to come off. The earth lead has to come off. Oh, there was also there's one more thing to tell you. There is a bolt where we took the slave pack off yesterday, which was that part there. Underneath the casting is a bolt, one of that size, which is 17mm. Now you've got to take that out, obviously. Now I've replaced that with a screwdriver, which I'll tell you next why I've done that. So that's all out. Oh, by the way, we took that bracket off, which allowed me to move the slave cylinder. So now it's free and easy, and I can just pop that out of the way up there. Okay. Right. So what I've done now we've got now with the bolts. In fact, I'll say this bit first. With the bolts, we left 2 bolts in. Now I've changed tact a little on which bolts I leave in. So I left this bolt in instead. You can see that there. Yeah, I left that bolt in instead, and I took this bolt out. Whereas yesterday, that was the opposite way around. I'd left that one in, and I took that one out. So I've swapped those around earlier on because I want a pin to go in here. Now, as you can see, I've got a pin in this one, and I've got a screwdriver in that one there. Now everyone's got big thick screwdrivers. It has to be something nice and chunky and thick, but thin enough to go through the hole of where the bolt came from without bashing the threads up, obviously, because you don't want to damage the threads inside, but you're using them as guides. So when your gearbox comes off, it's going to sit on those pins and not fall on the floor and on your foot. As you can see, I've already cracked this gearbox open because I had a little bit of a mess around, and I've done this video about 2 or 3 times now, but with batteries and all the rest of it going wrong, the video I've cracked on a little bit further than I wanted to. But anyway, it's all stuff that I can cover again. And we've got a helicopter coming over now. There you go. Check him out. Everyone likes the choppers. There you can see that. How entertaining it is to live around here. Where is he? Ah, he's gone. Ah well, there we go. Sorry about that. Back to the video. So I've put my guide poles in, and now when this gearbox was closed up and those 2 faces met down there, when that was all closed up, I removed the last of my bolts out here, and I'd also took that one out, and I took that one out down there. So I'd taken all of the bolts off, and nothing moves, okay? Because you've got your jack underneath supporting the weight of the gearbox, and the rust will hold these 2 faces together until you get a bar and start to find 2 edges that you can just peel away and just push away. Now you want to push this gearbox away from the engine only about ½ a centimetre to start with, and this is the reason why. Okay, I'm going to take the camera stand now, set this up. Right, there you go. Okay, right, I'm going to tell you why. to have a quick drink of my tea. Now yesterday I said that there's a shortcut with this where you don't have to take the drive shaft off and the wheels down on this side here. You don't have to take any of this off. As you can see, I've left it all intact. So that's because there, see, normally you would, or you can if you want to, because you've got this, the other drive shaft to take out the other side of the gearbox that drives the driver's side wheel. Now I like to leave them in because you can guide them in on the way back, and they can come out and sit where they are as you pull the gearbox away from it. So what you do is you split the gearbox about 1/2 centimetre, because you don't want to be pulling on the bearings too much or anything like that. You're not really going to damage it if you give it too much, so don't worry about it don't worry about it, you'll be okay. It'll be a reet, as they say in the trade. Right, so then what you want to do is you want to get a bar. See, I've already done this, as you can see. Now that would you wouldn't normally see that shiny piece there, you'd just see this dull black bit. And what you want to do is you get to get a bar in there. If I stop nudging the camera about, a bar in there, and just keep knocking it, pulling it back like you did the other one, like we did the other drive shaft. And you just have to get past that clip. I had to have a couple of attempts at this. It was a little bit tricky, a little bit sticky, but with perseverance in putting pressure on this and giving it a knock, and then 2 or 3 knocks, and going back upstairs, getting a bar, peeling the gearbox away a little bit more. Like you say, you don't really want to be peeling the gearbox away from underneath while you're underneath it. You're safe because you've got all your bars in. You've got the bars in up top, you've got the screwdriver in, and you've got that other bar in, so it can't fall on your head or anything like that. So you can, if you want, get underneath and get a nice purchase and a good view on this drive shaft to pull it out, because you're clicking it out of that recess, where that clips in the recess that I showed you yesterday. So anyway, so that's done, and that's your drive shaft now out of the gearbox, pretty much ready to. So you might have to go back, we might have to go back under there and just guide it out the last little bit, but I doubt it very much because they're on a joint and they'll swivel up and down. So what we're going to do now, because I've got to the point now, as you can see, my axle stand is still underneath my engine there. My gearbox is still supported by that jack there, but not very much. And that's it, it's just floating. Other than that, it's floating on the spigot shaft inside, which I'll show you. But we're on the guide, so I'm going to drop the jack a little bit now. Okay. So I'm going to start letting the gearbox lower, and what I'm going to do is I've dropped that now, and it's still, I think it, well, obviously it's still on the on my guide pins, so it's not going to go anywhere. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to release the jack only slightly, so it'll come down very slowly. Okay. So let's lock it up and just feel it click off. Okay. So it's a couple of degrees. Just click the jack off so it comes down very gradually, and it's not going to just come down all of a sudden, because you just want to lower this down. Okay. Right. Anyway, here we go. Let's get to the fun bit, shall we? Let's see this gearbox opened up. And British weather being British weather, it's starting to rain. That's just what I need. Right, let me set you up so you can see what's going on. So you see what's going in. Alright. Okay. Right, you can see my guide pin there. You can see the top of the gearbox and the hose is going to it. And you can't see me moaning about the weather. Right. Okay, so we're going to start peeling this box away now. So we've got the pins in, I've got my other one in there. Now, mind your fingers, have a look round the engine bay, make sure it's not going to fall onto any pipes, any brackets, any cables or anything like that. Yep, so we're good here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to reach down with my right hand, I'm going to reach down the right hand side and just try and get a hold of one of the casting knobbles that sits on the top. Just need your fingers in, just to give it a wiggle like that, because you want to be just wiggling it and prising it back. There we go, there we go. See, you'll feel it pop, because what it was on the end of those little dowels, and now it's only on my bars now. Okay, so we're going to start pushing this back. There we go. See that? Now that is the gearbox completely off now and free. There we go. Right, now we're in business, ladies and gentlemen. And I don't care if I'm getting wet. I really don't care now because we're on the good bit. Yay! Right. Okay. So I'm going to take that out. You see? So I've took that dowel out now, and we're on that. We're on one more screw. We're on one more screwdriver that's holding that side in. We're on the jack that's underneath, and then we're ready to peel away. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ease the screwdriver out slightly, but leave it in, but just give it clearance so the gearbox can come back a little more. Because what you're going to find is the gearbox will hit the bodywork next. That'll be the next problem you'll see. Okay, so now you can feel the gearbox just floating on the jack now. So we're all right. We're going to. I think it's time to go underneath. I mean, if you want to, you can just set 2 wheelie bins up either side of your car and stick a bar across the wheelie bins and tie a rope around your gearbox. And then do it that way, and then you've got like a pulley lift. You can get yourself like a homemade pulley lift from the top. Now that is the easiest way of doing this. That's a brilliant way of doing it. So there you go. Anyway, I'll stop waffling and we'll get a crack on with the way I'm doing it, because not everyone's got a big pole, have we, to sling over 2 wheelie bins. Right, okie dokie. Ooh, wow, you can see there, that there. Oh, can you see? Yeah, there you go, starting to come in. You can see the flywheel there. It's called the flywheel, and that's what the starter motor runs off. Now anyway, we're going to, as you can see, the clearance is running out at the back there. Okay, so what we're going to do, I'm going to set my camera up like that so you can see what's going on. Now, you don't really want to be in the way a lot here. You've got the screwdrivers in. In fact, I want to put that screwdriver back in a little bit more actually, because we're underneath and we want to be safe. So I'm going to lower the jack. Now the jack isn't doing anything at the moment, so just be a bit careful, a bit cautious. Like I say, you don't want to get in the way. In fact, I'll tell you what I might do. I might even, yeah, I think I'm going to leave you here underneath while I go up top and give this a jiggle from up top. Oh my god, I tell you what, the rain is really coming down. This might stop play. Oh wow, oh yeah. Yeah, I think this is going to, the rain could stop play, guys. This is a bit, or is it passing shower? Who knows, I tell you what, I'm wet already, so sod it. Alright, let's set this camera up. Tell you what, it's one of them days today, ladies and gents. It's one of those days. Right, okay, you're going to see this gearbox come out in a minute. Right, I'm over the top. I'm leaning over the headlight now, and I'm going to reach it. And the jack is obviously off, so the jack can come down if it needs to. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop my arms down either side of the gearbox. I'm going to have a look at this screwdriver. Yeah, I can take this screwdriver out now. Okay. Now, the only reason I'm taking the screwdriver out is because I've got my other hand on the top of the gearbox and I can feel it's not going anywhere. Okay. If there's any weight on that screwdriver, don't take it out. There's a general rule of that one. But because that screwdriver was pretty free moving, I know there was no weight on it and the gearbox isn't being supported by it. So now, all we've got supporting the gearbox now is the jack. Okay. So come on, Jack, do your job. Because, well then again, there's got to be something at the front holding it on. Otherwise it would drop down. So I think, yeah, we're just on that drive shaft that we've left in. Ah, there we go. Might start seeing the gearbox come down now. Or have I dropped the gear? Have I dropped that jack? Let's have a look. Hello again. Hope the video's still running. Yeah, we're still running. Right. Oh, you've seen the jack's moved, then that's good. Okay, right, yeah, we're pretty much off now. Right, you'll see this drop down in a minute. Okay, Now, because I had my fingers cleverly placed, I didn't trap them, and because I'm over the top of the gearbox, I didn't trap my fingers either. Okay, so this is what I mean. Assess the area, look where it's going to fall. Alright, and because it was on the jack then, because I had a good hold of it, it's not gone anywhere, and we're alright. Everyone's safe. Oh, hunky dory. Right, we've just got to give it a jiggle. See my arms coming down there, and that's the gearbox out. Yes, I've not kicked the camera. I haven't kicked the camera over. Brilliant. Okay, you've got a pretty bum view there. There we go. Ta-da! Nah, I'm praying you got a decent view of that, of watching that happen. I hope it didn't look too brutal. These gearboxes, they are slightly heavy, but they're not. Do you know what I mean? They're not going to yank you to the floor. And as long as you've got a good clever hold of it so your fingers aren't going to get trapped on anything underneath when it does finally come down and come free, you're not going to hurt yourself. Just be prepared, be smart, be clever. Yeah, and there you go, that's easy, that's the gearbox out now. Let's set that out and I'll show you what's inside. Here we go. Let's get to the meat and potatoes of this, eh? Right, let me catch my breath as well. Tell you one thing, you don't need to go to a gym if you're a mechanic. There we go. Alright, one gearbox. Okay, so let's have a look at the clutch as well and what we've got the other side. And that is, I'm going to take you off the camera stand now actually. And this is your clutch. There we go. Okay, so this is your pressure place of your clutch, what operates off your slave pack, and I'll show you the arm inside it which operates and pushes against this. Basically what happens is there's a strong pivot action with your foot pedal pushing on that slave pack that pushes an arm and pushes what's called a thrust bearing. You see this bit here, this way you can see the thrust bearing's been running around it and turning around. That thrust bearing pushes on these fins and opens this clutch up and allows the gearbox to separate from the engine internally without it dropping on the floor. Okay, so it separates the speed, because basically if you try to change gear and your gearbox and you didn't have a clutch, the difference in speed inside your gearbox from the next gear up you're going to or the next gear down you're going to, and the difference in speed to what your engine's going, wouldn't be matched. So you get that big grunching noise that you get when you miss your clutch, and you get that big horrible. So that's what happens. That's because the cog speeds aren't matched, and you can't get into the next gear because of that. So that's what this helps with as well. That's what it pretty much does. You release the connection between gearbox and engine. You allow the gearbox to basically slow down to any speed it wants, click into its next gear, and then slowly grab friction by this that I'll show you when I take it off, and pick up speed nice and gradually, so you don't get a big jerk in action. It's like you'll notice if you lift your clutch up really fast, you'll get a slam and your car will jerk forward. Well, that's because you've not let it build up speed gradually and you've just slammed it into basically full load. But I'll explain how that works in a bit. But there's your clutch. All we've got to do to take that down is these ring of bolts here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think there's 6, or yeah, I think there's probably 8 in here. But there you go. There's them. It rests on these little pin dowels here, not these. They're rivets that hold the clutch together. It sits on these pin dowels. So once you've undone these bolts, you'll have to get a little bar in there and just peel that away. And what you'll get is your pressure plate here, and then your friction plate which sits behind it, which I'll show you when it's off. Right, let's go back to the gearbox. Gearbox wise, this, now remember we took the slave pack off the side of there, which is a little hydraulic pump which when you push your pedal down it pushes fluid to the slave pack, and it pushes the piston out, which then pushes on that arm there, like so. Okay, Now what that does in here, as you can see, operates that arm. There you go. And that's all that does, and that opens and closes your clutch. Now as you can see, that one is getting stuck there. Okay, so we've got a bit of resistance there, that means it's wearing out, and that's all, but you'll get a new one in your pack anyway. So that's wearing out, the grease has dried up, it's not going freely at all, so that's gonna affect your gear change. That should, like you see, that should come to the end there. So as you can see, there you go. Right, that is the bit that pushes on your clutch that I've just showed you. Open, change gear, close. Okay, but you do that nice and gradually like that. And I suppose this will, with that being sticky, it will affect that gradual motion. Okay, now while you've got the gearbox off, it's always good to give this a spin and push up and down and side to side, and make sure there's not what you call lots of play in it. There's not wear in the bearings, because if there's wear in the bearings there, you'll get oil passing through, the bearings will eventually just destroy themselves and you'll need a new gearbox. There's no oil inside here, so all the oil seals are good that are behind this drive shaft here. This is what's known as a spigot shaft. As you can see, it's splined. You need to put a bit of grease on there. There's already a bit of grease on there, so that's good. There's no teeth missing, so that's all cool. This is relatively alright. I'm going to set you up on the frame again while we take this off, actually. There's the old road today. Right, okay. Right, set you up on there. I think that's a good enough view. I'm going to get you closer. Right, okay. You've got a good view. And I can take this off. Now what you've got to do with this, you've got to take the rubber boot out and remove the rubber boot, because that gives it a little bit extra clearance, and then you can push this forward and it comes off like so. Now, because what you've got behind here, I'll show you in a minute, you've got to just, when that's at its full extension there like so, and you can be a little bit cheeky, just give it a twist and it will come off the clips at the back. Okay, so we've got that off now, that's all you do with that. Now what you want to do as well is you want to pull this arm off, your pivot arm. That should just be on a little spring clip. Yeah. So if you get your finger behind it, push one of the springs out to the side and it'll go over there. There you go. Right, okay, let's have a look at this. As you can see, spring clip in there. Get your finger behind the back, push one to the side, and it comes, and it comes away from this ball joint here. Okay, so that's all that sits on. That just pivots on there to open and close your clutch. You just want to be checking for cracks in the casting, anything like that. You want to put a bit of grease on that when you put it back. Ideally you want what we used to call copper grease, but you're not really supposed to use it, it's a carcinogen. So if you do use it, use gloves. And you want to put a little splatter of copper grease in there. On here, I've only got normal grease, so normally you use special gearbox drive shaft grease. I forgot what the name of it's called now, for the life of me. I did have some of it that I got from an old garage. It was blooming expensive stuff. I wish I'd have been a bit more sparing with it. Alright, okay, there's your, this is what's called your thrust bearing. Okay, so there's that's got a bearing inside it there, so that turns with your clutch so it can spin and also stay. This part, it's like the part on a BMX bike. That bit stays still and that bit turns, and then that can go that way as well. Okay, so there you go, that's how that works. You replace those all the time because they wear out, like you see. That's got a plastic inner coating to go around a metal inner bush. Okay, so the plastic's going to wear before the metal, because obviously plastic is softer than metal, and that's the way it works. Alright, so and it does that for a reason, because you don't want to be replacing the whole gearbox, you want to be replacing the cheaper parts. So there you go. You would also put a little splatter in of grease behind here as well, just to let everything move freely and that kind of thing. Here's where your drive shafts sit in. There's one, and there's your oil seal there. You want to be checking your oil seal for damage. There's not much to see in there. You can see some roller bearings that are all the way in there. This, like you say, you can give them a roll. You don't want to be getting don't want to be getting any dirt in here, so you want to be putting a rag in here. I should have done that before I dropped it down, to be honest, but I couldn't this side because we left the drive shaft in. But the other side should have had a rag in it, to be honest, because you don't really want any dirt to be getting in there. Other than that, you clean your bell housing out. This is what's called the bell housing. So you clean your bell housing out, and you always use a mask because this will have all manner of toxic dust in it. So clean that out with a little paintbrush, with a dry paintbrush. Other than that, that's all there is to tell you, guys. There are your gear selectors. Not much to see there. Like I say, this is what's called your turret housing, and inside there is a little selector that runs side to side and back and forward like that. I hope you can see that. Sorry, am I zoomed in too much? I don't think so. Okay, yeah, it just moves backwards and forward and side to side, and your cogs and gears will all sit inside this big bolt bit here. And you'll have a main shaft. You have what's called your main shaft, which runs off this spigot shaft here, and that is the main drive. And then off that you will have all different sized gears, which go to gear 1, gear 2, gear 3, and up your speed in relation to the ratios. On here, this part here, this bulky bit at the side, is your reverse gear. Now that gear has got no what's called synchromesh to it, so instead of the cogs going in at an angle with each other for a smoother kind of entrance, the cogs on your reverse gear don't have that. So that's why when you put your car into reverse all the time, it gives that grunching noise almost every time. There's not many cars that don't. That's because the gears have just got no synchromesh in this reverse bit here, so they just let it do what's called a crash box type thing. Anyway, I think that's all there is to tell you there. You can see, like you say, you can see all the bolt holes again now. Oh yes, one of the bolts, I've got to drill this out. One of the bolts yesterday was so tight that it just snapped off. It snapped clean off. So no rust, no grease has been on this when it got fitted. So unfortunately I've got to drill that out. All you do is you get the centre of the bolt there, and you drill a small pilot hole in the middle of the bolt here. You probably go to about, on this one I'd keep drilling out, I'd do a small pilot hole, make sure I've got the middle, or as close to the middle as possible. Then I would go step up to a little bit of a bigger drill, a little bit bigger, until I got to about 3/4. Yeah, to a diameter of about 3/4 of the actual diameter of the bolt, and then I'm going to have to use these handy little tools, which I'll show you without knocking my tea over, hopefully. Yeah, there you go. And then I use these. These are what's called Easy Arts, and they're reverse threaded stud extractors. There you go. So I'll drill a hole in the middle of that stud, leaving some of the broken stud left. I'll turn that in the opposite way, and then as I turn this the opposite way, it obviously winds the bolt out at the same time. Okay, so that's the idea with those. They're all right. They work most of the time. Right, I think we're cool, Daddy-o. I'm going to charge the camera up. Part 4. I think I'll. Yeah, part 4. Well, either part 4, and what I'm going to do, because the battery might run out. I'll say it now, maybe in part 4 we'll be taking the clutch off and I'll show you that. Or maybe not, because I'm going to set the camera up now.